President Donald Trump's tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China have expedited the global agenda. As you are aware, Canada and Mexico face 25% tariffs, while China faces duties of up to 60% on some items. Europe was next in line for Donald Trump. This time, Trump's tariff measures targeted the European Union. The U.S. president indicated that EU tariffs will be revealed soon and that the UK would have to work on this matter for some time.
European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done. Well, Prime Minister Starmer has been very nice. We've had a couple of meetings. We've had numerous phone calls. We're getting along very well. And we'll see whether or not we can balance out our budget. With the European Union, it's $350 billion deficit. So obviously something's going to take place there.
The alarming words sparked widespread anxiety among EU member states. While the EU group assessed the situation in light of Trump's tax plans, French President Emmanuel Macron made a critical counterstep. Emmanuel Macron made words on tariffs that even Donald Trump would not have imagined. We will now go into depth about Macron's main statements. We'll also find out how other EU member states reacted to Macron's words. But first, please subscribe to our channel, enable alerts, and like us to remain current on our material. Let's get started. As EU leaders called for discussions in response to Donald Trump's threat of tariffs, French President Emmanuel Macron made an unexpected announcement. The French president stated that if the United Nations imposed tariffs on EU interests, member nations would be allowed to respond. Speaking on the margins of the informal EU military conference in Brussels, Emmanuel Macron emphasized that if the United States accelerates its trade policies, Europe, as a surviving force, must guarantee that it is respected and so react.
Simple, nous on pense que la priorité elle est à cet agenda stratégique et sécurité de nos frontières, et si nous étions attaqués sur des sujets commerciaux, l'Europe, comme une puissance qui se tient, devra se faire respecter.
Macron advocated for a bolder and more coordinated response to global trade challenges. To lessen reliance on foreign powers, the French president emphasized the need for Europe to improve its industrial and technical infrastructure, raise defense investment, and pursue a strategic economic strategy. He also pushed for an action plan that included expanding public and private sector financing, overhauling the European Investment Bank's financing procedures, and putting European business first in procurement choices. Emmanuel Macron urged EU allies to support France's efforts to increase defense spending, stating that Europe must work together in vital industries. These words were interpreted as a retaliatory effort by Macron at a time of rising fears about trade relations with the United States, following President Donald Trump's inauguration. In other words, French President Emmanuel Macron was already preparing to counter U.S. President Donald Trump's tariff bluster against Europe. Marc Ferracci, France's industry minister, advocated that trade discussions with Washington should include a power dynamic. Marc Ferracci believes that in order to be effective, any reaction must focus on items that are vital to the United States and be direct. The Bank of France's governor, François Villeroy de Galhau, described Trump's existing tariffs as harsh. François Villeroy de Galhau stated that these tariffs will exacerbate economic uncertainty and are a concerning trend. The EU group also had a more in-depth discussion about the matter. The bloc's foreign policy leader, Kaja Kallas, stated that there would be no winners in a trade war. According to European Council President Antonio Costa, EU member states agreed with Secretary-General of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization Mark Rutte that a stronger defensive Europe would improve transatlantic cooperation. Mark Rutte stated that the United States sells far more defense equipment to Europe than vice versa, and that there is a lot of money flying about, with more to come as European NATO partners raise their defense spending. According to Mr. Rutte, if defense spending grows, the United States will benefit significantly, and Donald Trump will have a considerably stronger hand in the tariff fight. European countries also supported French President Emmanuel Macron's position against U.S. tariffs, implying that the EU should do more on the matter. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz stated that the EU is powerful enough to respond to any U.S. trade sanctions, but their goal is to open the road for collaboration. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who thinks that Europe and the United States rely on one another, emphasized that a trade war is a mistake and that everything should be done to keep friends from fighting in the face of a Russian threat or Chinese expansionism. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen stated that Copenhagen would never favor a fight with friends in general, but that if the Trump administration puts heavy tariffs on Europe, it would confront a united and powerful response. On the other hand, the leaders urged deeper conversation with Washington, citing mounting tensions over trade competitiveness and the inability to properly settle the concerns. Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin stated that the EU and the United States should cooperate constructively on trade since protectionism harms individuals wherever they reside. Petteri Orpo, the Finnish Prime Minister, stated that Europe should talk with Trump on trade. According to Petteri Orpo, Russia poses the greatest threat to Europe. Luxembourg Prime Minister Luc Frieden stated that the solution to trade tariffs is to reply with the same measures, but that tariffs are always undesirable. Spanish Economy Minister Carlos Cuerpo stated that the EU is open to trade and supports a globalized economy. Carlos Cuerpo stated that parties should defend their firms to ensure fair competition. EU leaders broadly supported French President Emmanuel Macron's words, but their main point was that the tariff problem should be handled through discussion. Emmanuel Macron, on the other hand, has been the most vocal EU leader in recent days regarding Donald Trump's threats to slap tariffs on the EU. So, following Macron's comments, if Trump decides to apply more tariffs rather than strike a deal with France, how will this affect the two nations' futures? In reality, contrary to predictions, ties between the U.S. and France have recently worsened dramatically. Before Donald Trump slapped tariffs on the EU, tensions between the two countries were already high. This is because, on the first day of his second term, President Donald Trump issued a series of executive orders removing the United States from the Paris Climate Change Agreement and the World Health Organization. With these acts, Trump had already hinted that he was poised to blow icy winds. In 2007, France and the United States were on very good terms. Political ties between France and the United States improved when Nicolas Sarkozy was elected president of France in 2007. Sarkozy, also known as the American Sarko, professed pride in his nickname at the time. Following Sarkozy, U.S.-French ties deteriorated further. On July 12, 2017, U.S. President Donald Trump traveled to France at the request of President Emmanuel Macron. In April 2018, after Macron addressed the United States Congress and reiterated his wish for the U.S. to enter the Paris Climate Agreement to combat climate change, Congressman Thomas Massie accused Macron of being a socialist militarist and globalist scientific alarmist. In late 2018, Trump criticized Macron over nationalism, tariffs, France's humiliation in World War II, ambitions for a European army, and the French president's support ratings. This came after Trump's Armistice Day visit to Paris, which drew widespread criticism both in France and the United States. In November 2019, Macron questioned the U.S. commitment to Europe. Donald Trump's recent tariff imposition maneuver against the EU has strained relations between the two countries even further. Although the two nations have had a rocky relationship thus far, Trump's tariff move may have negative consequences for both the United States and France. To further comprehend these drawbacks, consider the two nations' economic relations prior to Trump's decision to implement tariffs. France and the United States have a strong and mutually beneficial commercial partnership. After a considerable comeback in French-American commerce following the COVID-19 epidemic, reaching record highs in 2022, trade fell in 2023, owing mostly to dropping energy costs and reduced French beverage exports and cruise ship activity. Nonetheless, bilateral commerce remained larger than before the outbreak. Although there were no severe issues between the United States and France, economic changes concerned both countries. Trade in products between the two nations totaled 97 billion euros in 2023, a 12.4 billion euro decrease from 2022. According to French customs estimates, imports and exports in all major product categories decreased. While France's trade surplus was 15.9 billion euros, trade in services increased by around 2% in 2023, reaching 70.4 billion euros. French imports rose by 1.7% to 27.3 billion euros, while exports increased by 1.7% to 43.2 billion euros. In all categories, the United States was France's fourth largest consumer and fifth largest supplier in 2023, a one-place decrease from the previous year. Following 4 years of surpluses, the bilateral trade balance fell moderately to a 13.3 billion euro deficit in 2022, returning to negative territory. The 2023 deficit was 6.6 billion euros. In 2023, French exports to the United States were driven by the aerospace sector, pharmaceuticals, and drinks. Compared to 2022, all three commodity groups declined. Beverage exports, in particular, fell by 1 billion euros, or 20.6%, breaking all previous records. Furthermore, cruise ships and ships containing medicines were among the industries experiencing the greatest reduction in exports. General-purpose machinery and tools came in fourth place after cosmetics and fragrances, owing to increased wind turbine exports. Although the economic relations between the United States and France have risen and then fallen, the economic dynamics have remained stable, with no confrontation between the two countries. However, given Donald Trump's conduct, further economic conflicts between France and the United States are to be expected. This may drive France to seek alternative economic relationships. Which country could France choose over the United States? China and France's relations have shifted dramatically in recent years, thanks to high-level conversations, cooperation agreements, and joint pledges on global issues. The visit of French President Emmanuel Macron to Beijing in April 2023 marked a watershed moment in Sino-French relations. New agreements were made during the visit, indicating a stronger connection. Specifically, both countries asked the international community to address the spillover implications in a variety of areas and committed to help resolve the Ukrainian problem via dialogue. Following this summit, further specifics emerged, demonstrating Chinese President Xi Jinping's appreciation for the positive impact of bilateral economic cooperation. Officials demonstrated renewed hope by signing 18 cooperation agreements on behalf of French and Chinese firms, emphasizing the benefits of collaboration. A year later, in May 2024, Xi visited Macron in Haute-Pyrénées, France, during his first trip to Europe in 5 years. Their conversations covered a wide range of global topics, confirming shared commitments to develop relations not just between China and France, but also with the European Union. While Macron emphasized the importance of maintaining Europe's strategic independence while strengthening ties with China, Xi emphasized China's commitment to national unity and cross-cultural contacts with France, reflecting collaborative efforts to improve collaboration and stabilize global affairs. These recent developments show the growing importance of Sino-French relations on the global stage. China has become France's most important economic partner outside of the European Union, but France retains its critical role as China's primary trade ally within the EU. France's bilateral sectoral deficit with China increased significantly from 1.1 billion euros in 2022 to 2.92 billion euros in 2023. This meant that France imported more products and services from China than it exported to France. The increase in the trade deficit reflected a greater dependence on Chinese goods in the French market. In 2023, China's leading exports to France were electrical and electronic equipment, machinery, energy components, boilers, furniture, lighting signs, prefabricated structures, unknown items, and vehicles other than trams. Finally, all of this demonstrates that France has a viable alternative partner in China in the face of U.S. tariffs. Given Donald Trump's rising tariff pressure on the European Union, Emmanuel Macron's recent worried and assertive words increase the chance that France will increase its exports and imports to China. This is viewed as a significant danger to both the United States and the EU. As a result, analysts feel that the tariff dispute between the EU and the U.S. should be settled largely via negotiation rather than retribution. It remains to be seen which scenario will play out in the current tariff issue between the United States and the European Union. Thank you for watching.